And this is it then. This is the day I've been dreading. The inevitable morning when you and I come to the parting of the ways. After 40 years of talking to myself and to you, the loyal listener, I gave up the day job, and now I'm heading off to rediscover the country that made me. The island I left behind at the end of the 1960s was an isolated place. Not much industry, agriculture was the mainstay. This meant a meagre existence for most. It wasn't until the mid-90s that the country's fortunes changed. Now fully signed up to Europe, Ireland became one of the fastest growing economies in the world. The boom was christened the Celtic Tiger. And never having had a boom before, the Irish thought it would go on forever. When the global financial crisis hit in 2007, the bubble burst. By November last year, Ireland was forced to seek a bailout. In return, the Irish people were asked to accept some tough austerity measures. That didn't go down very well. You have to remember, this island has a history that puts the present crisis firmly in context. This island has survived famine, 500 years of colonization, and religious discrimination. I have to say, though, that on this journey, I found plenty of laughter and music and a joy for living. They may be down, but don't ever count Ireland and the Irish out.
We would like to draw your attention to the safety instruction card located close to your seat. And recommend
I've lived in Britain longer than I ever lived in Ireland. So this, for me, is exciting. I'm going back to see what's changed about the 4 green fields. I'll be meeting up with old friends. We all used to go in through this door, didn't we?
Yes.
And family. You go first, just in case they set the dog on him, you know. And of course, I want to show you the country at its best. This is Ireland. Come on. Nobody comes here for the weather. The first part of my journey is going to take me in a semicircle down through Cork and Kerry onto my old hometown of Limerick. This, of course, is what the granny used to call dear old dirty Dublin. Ah, there it is, Anna Livia Plurabelle, the great Liffey River, and the Halfpenny Bridge that spans it. And, of course, proud O'Connell Street, the great boulevard. And there's where I lived from 53 until 69. It's over 40 years since I fled the bailiffs and stole away. I'm going to be escorted around the old country by my driver, Dave Sullivan. Like most Dubliners, he thinks Dublin has terrible traffic. But then, they've obviously never been on the M6 near Birmingham or the M25 around London. Now, that's traffic, okay? This is not traffic. Okay, Dave? Not traffic. This is a few old cars. Anyway, never mind what's supposed to be traffic. The old city is still as familiar to me as it ever was. Oh, it's lovely to come back to Dublin. It's lovely to come back to Ireland. I don't come back often enough. But when you come back, you realise what you don't realise that you've missed, if you see what I mean. For many Irish people who've lived in Britain for years and years and years, they still think of Ireland as home. They'll say to you, are you going home for the holidays? And they mean, are you going to Ireland? I don't know whether I could live in Ireland again, because I think I've become anglicised. For me, Ireland is wonderful, a lovely place to come, but it's not home. Home is where your family is, as far as I'm concerned. Saying that, Dublin was my home for nearly 2 decades. The Da was the general manager of a chain of grocery stores called Leverton Fry. I was sent to Belvedere College, where I played my rugby and felt the stern hand of the Jesuit fathers. And this is where my working life, if you can call it that, began as a junior clerk at a long-forgotten branch of the Royal Bank of Ireland. The building is long gone, but the bus stop's still there. as is my old workmate,
This is
Leo
the thing,
Lacey.
I mean, you and I were used to standing outside this bus stop.
We didn't care how long it took.
Every week, Leo and I used to carry a bag of used banknotes from our branch out in the suburbs to head office.
We'll take it
The
anyway.
longer,
Come on.
the longer it took, the better.
Right, down to Foster Place
After
with
you.
the money. After you, Leo.
And no armoured security van for us. Not likely. The number 10 bus. And yet between us, we were carrying a small fortune.
What would be the value of that?
Doing a rough rule of thumb of 10 times the bank manager's salary, must be about, £100,000.
Well, back in the 50s, most of the bank's customers were cattle jobbers or farmers.
Of course, these were old notes that we were bringing down.
Well, they were wrecked after being through the bars or the markets up in Phibsborough.
Phibsborough, yeah.
Yeah, the
Cattle
farmer,
market and all
cattle
that.
market and
I mean, the smell of them.
the drippy wet beer.
They were destroyed.
Yeah.
And then they gave us new notes,
Yeah,
which we brought back on another bus.
that's right. Yeah, casual as you like.
Racy days, eh?
And here we're coming up to Foster Place.
Foster Place was where the bank headquarters were, and we breathed a little sigh of relief when we got to this point. But the question is the old place still there? It's been 50 years since I made my last delivery of rancid banknotes.
You don't feel that we should be carrying something?
Yes. Yeah.
The bags with the money. Look, and the counter is still the same here, Leo. We used to go round here, and in there, which is now an open space, was where we used to carry the notes, because that was the note department.
And the major,
And the major was there with his Smith & Wesson.
grumpy, crusty old.
I suppose we were very lucky he didn't shoot us.
It probably wouldn't work. It'd blow up in his face.
But it brings back happy memories. I'm bound to say.
I'm delighted to see it's still here.
Foster Place.
Yeah, working in a bank was a respectable job then. Here I am, desperately trying to look like a man about town on the bonnet of me dad's car. But I thought of myself as an urban Irishman, and the problem with the bank was, sooner or later, they'd send you off to work in a branch out in the sticks. Could be years before you returned to what you thought of as civilization. That wasn't for me, so I was on the lookout for something else. In those olden times, I indulged the hidden show-off in me, in amateur dramatics, never thinking of a professional career until I stumbled into broadcasting. Irish National Radio offered me a traineeship. Before I knew it, I was sitting in front of a microphone, talking to the nation. No one more surprised than me. That fear I had of being trapped in a small provincial town goes back perhaps to my father, who spent a very unhappy childhood growing up under the patronage of an English Protestant landowner in the little country village of Enniskerry. My father, in the great Irish tradition, resented authority. And the kind of authority that he had to endure, and most people had to endure in Enniskerry in the 1900s, was the authority of Lord Powerscourt, who not only owned all the land, but actually, in the tradition of those English lords, owned the people as well. The village of Enniskerry was built to house the servants and workers of the nearby Powerscourt estate. Now, I've come back to my father's birthplace to meet a relation of mine, Una Wogan, a second cousin, and she's traced the Wogan clan as far back as they go in this village.
So if you just look at one
And
of
you've got the pictures.
I have
the
one-
pictures of
one-
the antecedents.
we have a picture of your grandfather and grandmother.
Look at that.
So that's Michael, and he married a Sarah McRoe. She was from Fermanagh. So that's who your father was very fond of his mother, I heard.
He was.
Yes.
My father didn't like his father much.
By all accounts, his father wasn't a very pleasant man.
Well, my father was a really nice man.
Yeah, yeah.
And but he didn't have a moustache like that. But I can see the resemblance.
My father left Enniskerry and his home and family as soon as he could. 15. Couldn't bear having to kowtow and doff his cap to Powerscourt's local dignitaries. Now it seems Una has discovered a previous generation of Wogans in Enniskerry going way back into the 19th century.
Oh, no, Gresha died in
A man that would be
1960.
my
She was quite young.
great-grandfather.
The very first Wogan to come to the village was Michael Wogan.
Yeah.
He came from Dublin City and he married an Eliza Kelly, who was from the village. And then they went on to have 11 children.
They didn't fool around in those days, did they?
No.
And what did he do for a living?
He was a bootmaker, a master bootmaker.
Young Una here claims to have tracked down a photograph of the great Wogan ancestor hanging on a wall in a pub. That's a surprise. This I must see. So this is the old pub here.
This is the old pub.
Yeah.
So if you look at this
And what's
photograph,
this?
This is your great-grandfather, Michael.
Of course, I'm a Michael.
You're a Michael.
Yeah,
so
I'm a Michael Terence.
You're in.
And my mother called me Terry because my father was Michael Thomas.
Right.
So just to distinguish between us, instead of shouting Michael and nobody knowing who's been called, she called me Terry. And that's another Michael. Look at the herbaceous border. Don't tell me there's more.
Well, this is him sitting down.
It's extraordinary. Where was this taken?
Powerscourt House on the left, so he was 75 in this.
What is that, Lord Powerscourt there?
That's him, yeah.
You're sitting there in what could only be described as a fairly seigneurial position.
This is it. And they were all at attention, really.
And this is Powerscourt today, over a century after my great-grandfather toiled over making the boots and shoes of the people that served and worked here. It's been transformed from Lord Powerscourt's stately home to one of Ireland's most popular tourist destinations, but the reminders of the old hierarchies are still here. These steps look strangely bare, don't they, after those photographs in the pub? So how does one man get all this? Well, his ancestor was a very successful soldier. Wingfield was his name. And so he was rewarded by being Marshal of Ireland. Given this huge parcel of land, he built this modest little place behind it. Not him, the unfortunate Irish peasantry built this little place behind. And then these magnificent Italianate gardens. For 20 years, hundreds of local Irish labourers slaved over the creation of these fabulous gardens. And inside the house, great teams of butlers and cooks and tweenies and housemaids and footmen would have been put to service running and maintaining this vast residence for the comfort and pleasure of its wealthy owners. You know, the good Lord and Lady Powerscourt, they didn't get where they are, or were, by not thinking of everything. This sunken road was specially designed by them, so they didn't have to see the rough peasantry and their servants making their way to the fields and the house. And the only reason you can see me is I'm taller than the average peasant of those times, I like to think. Powerscourt was built by the people of Enniskerry. And indeed, they relied on this place for their living. They still do. Enniskerry relies on Powerscourt and its tourism to this day. No, at one time, Ireland was full of little fiefdoms like Powerscourt. English and Scottish settlers seized much of the country's best land. The native Catholics became tenants in their own country. During the 1840s, the country experienced a crippling famine. 1 million people died of starvation. Even before the famine, thousands of people eked out an existence, growing their crops among the stony hills and valleys of the Wicklow Mountains. On family drives over here over the weekends in the 1950s, we'd marvel at the beauty of Sugarloaf Mountain. But coming from the poverty-ridden countryside as he did, my dad would always remind us, you can't eat the scenery. During the Great Famine, over 1 million people emigrated rather than starved to death. And the austere conditions in Ireland meant people continued to emigrate in large numbers, right up until the 1960s. They left without knowing what they were going to. They left because they were desperate. They left because they were starving. They left because there was no work. And their last view of their native land
was Cove. And I just thought that you might like to see it. Adjacent to the city of Cork, the port of Cove lies on an island in the middle of the second largest natural harbour in the world. This was Ireland's emergency exit. Poverty, escalating rents, anti-Catholic discrimination were just some of the reasons Irish people sought a better life elsewhere. Between the 1850s and the 1950s, 30% of the population, around 2.5 million people, emigrated to America. One of them was Philomena O'Shea. She was just 17 when she decided to leave her family behind and set sail for America in 1952. Why did you decide to leave?
There wasn't any work, but it was an adventure, I suppose, as well, you know. We went to the cathedral that afternoon and we lit candles and said our prayers, of course. Yeah. They brought us out and there was about 600 passengers on it. And we were shown our cabin, and there was 6 of us in the cabin, to my memory, I think, in bunk beds. It was dawning in the morning. We came up on deck, they told us that we were seeing the last sight of Ireland. But I do remember looking at that and being very lonely, and everybody was lonely on the deck. That's the recollection I have. It was very sad leaving it, I suppose, you know, and seeing my family out there.
Did you cry?
I did, and I remember my brother was crying.
How long did it take you to get over that on the boat before you recovered from the sadness of it?
Oh, I think I never got over it for a year. It was a very tough year, that first year.
Were you lonely?
Very lonely, yeah. Very lonely.
But Philomena didn't stay lonely forever. You met the love of your life when you were in there.
I did.
How did you meet him?
At the Irish Centre.
Yeah?
Yeah. William O'Shea. He was from Ventry, Dingle.
Oh, was he? And that's where you're up from at the moment.
That's where I'm living now, yeah.
He dragged you back to County Kerry.
He did.
Did you have a family before you left America, or did you have all your children?
I brought one daughter with me. She was 5 months old. Yeah. From the States.
And how many children did you have again?
6 children altogether.
6 O'Sheas.
O'Sheas, yeah.
6 O'Sheas. And so now your children have married.
They have,
and
yeah.
How many grandchildren do you
I have 10 grandchildren.
God, I've only got 4. 10 grandchildren. A prolific O'Shea family.
Yeah.
History seems to be repeating itself. The number of Irish people emigrating to the United States is up by 12%. For the first time in 15 years, there are more people leaving Ireland than entering it. Further up the River Lee is Cork City. There's one thing that's all too readily associated with the Irish, and that's the demon drink. There's no doubt it has been a problem in the past. There were once 800 licensed premises here in Cork alone. Holy Catholic Ireland, though, has always regarded drinking as ungodly. Back in the 1840s, the great temperance reformer, Father Matthew, convinced almost half the adult population of the country at the time to take the pledge and banish alcohol from their lives forever. It didn't last forever, though. By 2003, Ireland had the second highest alcohol consumption in the world. I've come to one of the oldest and most far-famed bars in Cork to meet the bar owner Mary O'Donovan and the High B proprietor himself, Brian O'Donnell.
I remember being serving in a bar of my aunts in the country long ago, 50 years ago or longer, and I saw a man having 24 pints, but there was yeast in the pints at that stage. It was kind of nourishment.
I see. This is kind of... This wouldn't be regarded as a health drink now.
Well, they'd like to call it that, but it wouldn't be anymore.
The High B is like pubs used to be. You won't find any plasma screens or Wi-Fi spots here.
Problem is, though, pubs can't be like they were. A smoking ban has been in force since 2004 in Ireland. You can barely sniff a drink here before you're over the limit. How can pub culture survive? The pub can be the focus of a community. Would you say that the pub is a very important part of Irish culture?
Not anymore.
Have things changed?
They have. The drink driving and the smoking.
So in your experience, Mary, are there less people coming into your pub?
Well, it has changed completely. The day trade is gone.
The day trade?
Yeah, we don't open now until 4 o'clock.
So tell us about an average day when times were good. When would the first customer come in?
Or 10:30.
Yeah. Taking a drop of the crater during the day was once commonplace in Ireland, and this was because bars like the High B were at the centre of the community. People came seeking company, conversation. Not anymore. I understand you threw somebody out of this pub for having a mobile phone.
But I mean, you see,
You're a hard man.
In a kind of way, Terry, to think we're social in a sort of way. I mean, we provide people to talk to.
Social drinking and the pub have been at the heart of Irish life for centuries. In times of hardship, people have sought solace in drink and companionship. But of course, the other great mainstay of Irish life has been religion. From Cork and its neighbouring port of Cove, it's a short but scenic journey to the little village of Ballinspittle. To get there, we head west over the picturesque estuary of the River Bandon and on past the old head of Kinsale. Like 90% of the population of the Republic of Ireland, I was raised in the Catholic tradition. Roadside statues of the Virgin Mary are as familiar as bus shelters, corner shops. Yet this one managed to catch the attention of the entire nation. The statue of the Blessed Virgin Mary, just outside the little village, moved, at least according to passers-by and devout Catholics. This was the very statue. It was first spotted moving in July 1985 by a small group of local people. 2 months later, it had become one of the biggest news stories in Ireland.
Since that first sighting in July, more than 250,000 people have flocked to see Ballinspittle's moving Madonna. They come from as far away as Dublin and Belfast in special coaches laid on for the pilgrimage.
Look at our head now. Yeah. Our head is moving now. Yeah, definitely now. Kind of blowing a lot.
I thought we'd better go along and meet a couple of people, sensible people, all right, devout Catholics, who believe that they saw the statue move in Ballinspittle. Pat Bowen and Sean Murray were there the day the alleged miracle happened.
The Holy Spirit,
amen.
the angel of the Lord declared unto Mary.
And she was conceived of the Holy Spirit.
You're a former policeman.
That's right.
So you know you're not going to be too easily deceived.
No. Well, I came here on the evening of the 24th of July, 1985. It was the crowd I was watching, not the statue, because as a policeman, it's the crowd interested me. And the only time my gaze switched to the statue was when the crowd of about 400 people that were here at the time, in mid-sentence, stopped. It was like a light switch. There was this collective gasp of amazement, and then I looked at the statue. It sounds crazy even today, and even bad today, but the statue, to my mind, was free of the grotto.
Seemed to be floating.
Floating in the air. Now, I was so convinced this was a hoax that the following morning at 7 o'clock on my way to work in the city, I decided I was going to solve this thing once and for all. And I climbed up there at 7 o'clock in the morning. I expected to find some form of trick wiring or trick lighting or something. And I was absolutely amazed when I found nothing. And I actually walked right around the statue, in at the back. I caught it by the shoulders. I tried to shake it, and it was as solid as the railings that we're looking at here.
So tell me, did it change your life?
Well, I was always religious, but yeah, definitely deep in my faith.
So it's been a place of inspiration and consolation.
Yes.
Does it console you still?
Yeah, certainly does. I always come here with my troubles.
And what about you?
It's been an extraordinary place. The only way I can describe it to you is that, like, I can touch Terry Wogan. I know that's you, because I can touch you. But by the same token, there are things out there that we can't either see or touch. But that's where the bit of faith comes in.
The statue continued to attract the crowds for more than 4 months after the initial sighting, but you have to remember back in 1985, Ireland was one of the most devout Catholic nations in the world, so it's not hard to understand how an alleged miracle like this might gather momentum amongst the faithful. Back in the village, local journalist Tim Ryan has followed the story from the very beginning.
The amazing thing about the events of 85 is very ordinary people believed they saw something moving, something happening. I would say, an estimate guess from my memory, about, I'd say, 3 out of 5 people who came believed they saw something happening.
What did you think?
Well, I thought if I gazed at it long enough, I could see a wobble on the statue, but I never put it down to more than a sort of staring at a number of bulbs together for a long enough time. And I wear glasses anyway.
Why do you think it happened at the time it happened?
It was a very bad time. The economy was going nowhere. It was a phenomenally bad summer. People were praying for fine weather. That time farmers made hay, and in order to make hay you needed 2 or 3 sunny days together. And it just wasn't happening. People were desperate for saving their crops. And I think this was all came together into a reaching out for help from the supernatural.
And dwelt amongst us.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us.
The devotion to the Catholic Church, I suppose, goes back to the times of oppression and indeed to the times of starvation. Because when a people have nothing else, when they've got very little to eat, when they've got nothing else to believe in, when they can't be educated, when they can't own land, they're going to fall back on the only thing that gives them any succor whatsoever. And that's a belief in God, and more specifically, a belief in the Catholic Church.
But with church attendance waning, I wonder whether the new generation of Irish look more to their Celtic heritage, to music and language, to define themselves. We're hurtling ever westwards and onwards and out towards the Atlantic. We're heading to a little island off the southwestern corner of the country. Western fringes of Ireland are known as the Gaeltacht. This is where the Gaelic or Irish language is spoken. Clear Island is a favourite place for the young to learn their mother tongue.
The greatest gift you can have in Ireland is to be a good listener, because everybody's talking all the time. And it's partly the fault of Gaelic. I'll give you an example. If you say something like, I'm going out. No, I went out. Past tense, I went out. Well, in Gaelic, that's expressed as Tá mé tar éis dul amach. I'm after going out. So you'll hear that with Irish people speaking English. They say, oh, I'm after doing something terrible here, you know. So, and there's no such thing as hello in Gaelic. It's Dis Miragwit is Pádraig. Dis Miragwit, which is God and Mary be with you. And the answer to that is not hello yourself. It's Dis Miragwit is Pádraig, which is God and Mary and St. Patrick be with you. So you can see that conversations take just that little bit longer.
So here we are, Clear Island. I want to meet some of the young people who come here every summer to learn the Gaelic among these glorious surroundings. The added advantage to the parents, of course, is that unless they're very good swimmers, they can't escape. I'm on the local bus. Thank goodness Jim, the driver, is a fellow Dubliner and happy to speak English.
Obviously, you speak Gaelic or speak Irish because you live here.
I speak a small amount of Irish. Although you don't speak it in Dublin and that, but you have it from schooling. We have it, and it does come back to you. The office where I work now, it's all business is translated through Gaelic, and it's amazing the way it will come back to you.
How many people live in here at the moment?
130 people live here all year round, and it increases to about maybe 300, 400, 500 in the summertime, depending on the weather really. But also the colleges bring a lot of people, and certainly brings a boost to the economy of the island.
Tell me this now, is it dangerous driving here?
Not a bit, as long as you stay between the ditches.
Is this island a tax haven by any chance?
Yes.
Could I save money if I came to live here?
You could, because there's nowhere to spend it. And that's the only reason why. When my mother-in-law came down here, she said it was a lovely place, but there's no shops.
Wat is in Kartkalor? Ja? Magalor. Marialer shop. Harlan after?
Modern Sari.
Modern day Sari. V2 Brodul, neither. Oh, put the egg they talked. This more good?
Oh, this more
good. False is jacket in around.
This really Galer. Oh, Mahan Colini.
Hey, let's see shot. Let's na Lani Stocha. False road.
Is Misha Oslim noch? Huh? Tussen? Port Larga?
Corky. So I seem to have got away with it. Or maybe they're just being polite.
When I was at school here, Irish was compulsory. And if you didn't pass Irish, you failed all your exams, which was very, very tough. And what it meant was that we didn't love Irish. We were forced to learn it. Can any of you say why you're doing this course in Irish? Why?
So I can do better in my junior cert than I would if I didn't.
It's for exams, yeah, isn't it? And also because certain jobs are only available if you have Gaelic. Isn't that true?
Yeah.
The civil service, government jobs, etc. So, do you have an affection for the language? Do you like speaking the language?
Yeah. After coming here, I think I like it a lot more.
Yeah. And do you like being here?
Yeah.
You're not lonely on the island?
So, now learning Irish is about doing well, getting ahead in the world. Over 1.5 million people speak Gaelic now. That's 3 times the amount there was when I was born. So this is how you preserve your national identity, and it's working.
So he's a decent man.
What are you looking at? Now, before I leave, I head up on the hill to take in the view from the top of Clear Island. Out there in the distance is Fastnet Rock. This is the southernmost point of the entire country. I've never been there before. Now's my chance. With a height of over 50 metres above sea level, Fastnet is the tallest lighthouse off the coast of the British Isles. Even so, in 1985, a rogue wave as high as the lighthouse itself smacked into the building. Every one of the 2,047 Cornish granite blocks stayed firmly in place. Fastnet is where Ireland ends and the Atlantic begins. This port was not lost on the many that have sailed past it over the centuries, hence its nickname.
This is called Ireland's Teardrop because that was the last little bit of Ireland that the emigrants saw as the ship sailed off into the Atlantic and on to the New World.
Now it's time to head northwards. I'm off to beautiful County Kerry. This has always been one of my favourite parts of Ireland. Of course, this is what the tourists come to this country for.
So we're off to, I suppose, the gem in the diadem of Ireland's scenery. It was around about the 60s that some clever people in Board Fortune, which is the Irish tourist board, thought, let's start selling this country as a place where tourists can come. One of Board Fortune's greatest successes was branding the country the Emerald Isle. They're not wrong about that. There's one particular scenic route that's a must-see for lovers of landscape. It's called the Ring of Kerry. Tomorrow, Dave and I plan on driving it. Starting in Killarney, the Ring of Kerry is a 180-kilometre circular route around the spectacular coast of the county's peninsula. Tourists usually do the entire trip in a day, so we better start early. Aha! This is the view that greets us the next morning. It's what the Irish call a soft day. Breathtaking scenery is out there somewhere. Will we ever see it? From the look on his face, I don't think Dave is overjoyed at the prospect of a 180-kilometre drive.
You know, you do this drive on a beautiful day, and you think, oh, this is magnificent. You do this drive on a day like today, and you say,
how does anybody live?
How does anybody want to be in this part of the world? Isn't it horrible?
Is it difficult to drive? I mean, the scenery is a bit distracting, isn't it? Or it might be, if we could see it.
This section of road is quite good, but as we go up, the road does get much narrower. I suppose it's better if you're doing it the right way round rather than the wrong way round.
Because of the weight of traffic on this road, Kerry County Council advised people to travel the ring in one direction, anti-clockwise. Rebel at heart that he is, Dave has chosen to travel the opposite way around. I fear we'll all pay the consequences. This is the 10th bus that's tried to force us off the road. Is this dangerous going the wrong way?
Absolutely. Sure, if it wasn't dangerous, it wouldn't be fun.
That's all very well taking that attitude. I'd just like to be able to finish this documentary. It's comforting to see the visibility going down by the second.
So I suppose you're saying now your life is in my hands. Well, I hope I'm up to the task.
Well, so do I.
If we go over the edge...
You look after my wife and family.
I will, absolutely. And I'm sure as you'll look after mine as we both say goodbye.
Absolutely no chance of that. The rain seems to be having a strange effect on our Dave. Luckily, my mind is still on the job, and I persuade him to pull over. Let me take a look. What the guidebooks tell me is one of the very best views in the whole Ring of Kerry. Now, this is what the view is supposed to look like. This is the view to end them all. You can hardly see your hand in front of your face. This is Ireland. Come on. Nobody comes here for the weather. You come here for the scenery, even if you can see nothing. I'll leave you now because I want to drink in this wonderful view. So much for the views. I need a drink. And I think Dave's spirits need topping up a little too. Though, luckily for us, Tuesday night is Irish music and dance night at the Bridge Inn in Portmagee. Tell me this. I'm an urban Irishman myself. Do you like singing pubs?
Do I like singing pubs?
Do you like when you go into a pub, people bursting into song?
That's a good question.
Somehow, I don't think Dave is going to be joining me. This is the crack. When you see advertisements for Mila Fortune, 100,000 welcomes, come for the crack. They don't mean to fall through something in the floor. They mean crack, which is Gaelic for fun. Fun. And you won't have more fun than you have in an Irish bar with the singing and the music. Just listen to the hum of the atmosphere. I mean, these are people having a good time. There are Irish pubs all over the world, of course, wherever you go now. Kiev, Riga, Moscow, but they're not Irish pubs. And you won't find anybody Irish in them. This is an Irish pub. Of course, you wouldn't feel like this kind of thing every night, particularly when it starts getting a little maudlin, as it always does.
Come fill up your glasses, and we'll drink hand in hand. For tomorrow I am leaving the shores of Lochran.
The thing about most Irish songs is there's not many laughs in them. It's usually a bit like country music, just mostly about people's dogs or horses dying. Irish music is usually about people going, passing on, or being shot by the redcoats. And before someone shoots me, I'm going to turn in for the night. The next day, we head for Tralee. Although it's the capital of County Kerry, it can hardly be described as the jewel in the crown of this otherwise beautiful county. For that reason, Tralee has had to draw hard on the reserves of Irish ingenuity to get itself on the map. I'm rather proud to say I've played a part in all of this. Back in the 1950s, Tralee had come up with the idea of hosting an annual competition to find the country's loveliest lady. Like all beauty contests, it wasn't all about beauty. It was called the Rose of Tralee. It was to become a national event. The woman who helped create it and who became its first lady president, Irish-American Margaret Dwyer. Margaret Dwyer. Now in her 90s, Margaret recalls how it all started.
We had the bright idea. They were trying to figure out what we could have some kind of a festival on, and the only thing they could think of was the song, The Rose of Tralee, that John McCormick made famous over the world. And so it would be to choose a rose each year. And there was no such thing as bathing suits or anything like that.
What a shame.
No. I'm not that kind. I was never that kind of a woman.
But how did you manage to spread the word?
Well, we worked at it. We went out, we sold ourselves, and it grew. And it was successful, and people liked it. And Tralee got on the tourist map for the first time ever.
So you decided, okay, we're going to bring Ireland to Tralee. So we're going to have this festival, the Rose of Tralee.
The Rose of Tralee. And it was not her beauty alone that won me.
She was lovely and fair as the rose of the summer, yet 'twas not her beauty alone that won me.
There is a line in there that says, "It was not her beauty alone that won me." So it wasn't just beauty then. It had to be intelligence, it had to have general knowledge, and perhaps play the bodhrán or indeed the banjo. The girl had to be an all-rounder. By the late 60s, the Rose of Tralee had become a major international event. Any lady who could claim Irish descent, no matter where she lived in the world, could enter the competition. With a more ambitious show, the organisers were on the lookout for a new compere.
Yours truly has started appearing in a television game show for RTE's new TV channel, and somehow I became a contender. The committee decided that I would be the man to present it. And I wasn't going to argue with that. I was a veteran of Irish beauty contests. I presented the competition from 1968 until 1970. So that's how I ended up playing my part in Tralee's success story. Nowadays, the competition is one of the most popular events in the country, and this year's final was the most watched programme on Irish television. The Rose of Tralee transformed the fortunes of the town, but I wonder what effect it had on the 51 ladies who've won over the years. I called in on the winner of 1969's Rose. Cathy Quinn, a green-eyed student nurse, born in County Longford, proudly wears the Dublin sash. She says her selection at Dublin's Gresham Hotel, the most amazing, surprising and fabulous night of her life, which, of course, was immediately topped
by winning
the thing.
But there's an even better one, Terry. Wait, I'll show you. This one.
God.
Look at this.
Look at that.
Isn't that wonderful?
Isn't that frightening?
My boys say, I want sideburns like that, so they do.
Well, actually, that was 69.
Yeah.
Sideburns got even longer.
They did.
You were, in fact, tripping over your sideburns.
Yes.
Yeah. Look at the faces of the girls behind you.
They're,
raging. Raging. Look at them. Oh, if any of them had a knife, they'd be out stabbing you. So there you were, Rose of Tralee, and the next thing you're back being kicked around as a student nurse by the matron.
Nurse, that's right, and that's.
And look at the headline here said, look, you're trying to choke a patient there. Oh no, you're taking his temperature. Life's no bed of roses for Kath.
No.
When you went back to the hospital, did you find the matron bullying you? Did you find a lot of what could only be described as jealousy from the other nurses?
When I went back, all the nurses came into the refectory and sang the Rose of Tralee with a big cake and all the candles, and matron led them. She was wonderful.
Oh, well, that's terrific. Now that's Irish.
That was Irish.
And now, after more than 700 kilometres on the road, we're about to arrive in Limerick. This is where I was born, where I lived until I was 15. I'm coming home. Apart from being my birthplace, Limerick's other claim to fame is that it lies on the mighty Shannon, the longest river in the British Isles, running as it does all the way up to the border with Northern Ireland. At Sarsfield Bridge, I cycled back and forth over that bridge every day, travelling from home to school and back again, and now, as a freeman of the city, I can drive a herd of sheep over the self-same bridge. And this was the school, Crescent College, run by the Jesuit fathers. The building's still standing. I hope the same can be said of my old school friends. Look at the boys, look.
I thought you'd be running to us, kind of with open arms.
I've just had my knee replaced.
Say, Sebastian, I haven't seen you for years.
How are you, son? They're Jim Sexton, Bobby Mulrooney and Mick Leahy.
See you.
How are you getting on? I'm carrying on. The building is still used as a school, so I hope it hasn't changed too much. I haven't been through these doors in 60 years.
No, that was before us.
Ah, no, I remember. Crescent College was run on a diet of study, rugby, prayer and punishment. And this old staircase here takes me straight back to the person that dished out the punishment. And am I right in thinking that Snitch McLaughlin used to stand up at the very top there? Yes. He was what, Jim? What did we call him?
He was the prefect of studies.
He was stand here.
His real name was Jerry McLaughlin. He was a northerner.
That's right.
Was he?
He was, yeah.
And he was a man of severe aspect.
He was. He was very strict. And as you quite rightly say, we were all in a certain terror of him.
Yeah.
Remember, you got a docket when you were punished for not knowing something. Your teacher wrote out a little docket.
Six and best.
Had the whole morning or afternoon to think about it.
And he was the executioner.
This is where you used to go to get your hands knocked off.
Correct.
My screams could be heard all the way down O'Connell Street. Just looking at that door brings back painful memories. I was larruped twice a day sometimes. I wasn't brave. The Jesuit fathers, or Jays as we call them, were hard taskmasters, but they were good teachers, and every so often, we even had some fun.
Do you mind if we go in and see the hall?
Okay, let's go.
Do you remember the dances that we used to have, where they brought the girls from Laurel Hill in, and we could all dance, but the priests and the nuns were still walking amongst us to make sure that nothing was going on.
The guys would all be lined up on one wall, and the girls would be on the other. And the gap in between, was I was very shy and I just couldn't manage. I found it hugely difficult to walk across the floor.
You see, it was Irish dancing, so it wasn't waltzing or foxtrot.
Well, there used to be a waltz or two during the course of it, you know.
Did you know how to waltz? Anybody know how to waltz? You're the dancer. You're the dancer amongst us. What a boy. What a boy. Yeah. I remember I learned to dance in the Hydro Hotel, Kilkeel. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Whereas the foxtrot was 1, 2, 1, 2.
By gosh, you learned well.
Oh, only up as far as 3.
In the end, even though I had a strict religious upbringing, rather than strengthen my faith, it left me with no great love of religion or the church. Limerick Station, gateway to the east, as it was when my mother and I would escape to Dublin during the school holidays. And today, the brother is coming the opposite way to give me a bit of moral support.
Don't panic, no sign of a train. I'm a bit worried if the brother going to turn up or not. But I'm looking forward to seeing him. We can reminisce a little bit about the father's store and what Limerick was like in those days. Although he was very young. He would have been very young when he left Limerick. Brian's about 6.5 years younger than me. So I left when I was 15. So he would only have been about 8. So his memory's probably fresher than mine, since he's a great deal younger. You'll find him a small red-headed person with a wooden leg. Hi, Brian. Welcome. You're looking very brown.
Good to see you.
Well, good boy.
That wasn't bad for
No, good to see you. Good journey.
The train sometimes.
Good journey.
57 years later after the last one.
You're looking brown. Is the sun shining on you?
It crossed my mind, you know, how will they recognise me when I get off the train at Limerick? But then, of course, I realised, well, you know, you're just going to stand out in the crowd with that handsome figure walking down.
That's right, and the six-pack stomach.
I hope I didn't show you up in a bad way.
Oh, but no, not at all. Well, you know, I'm a bit like yourself. My body is a temple.
Our first stop is to see the site of the Da's old grocery shop.
Do you remember the Da? It was more of a Fortnum and Mason than a Marks and Spencer, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because he used to keep all the stuff that the remittance men and the relics of old decency who lived in Tipperary.
Oh, they all came around
horse
for
people.
it. Oh, yeah.
They used to come for exotic stuff, dried fish from India.
That's right.
Yeah.
They even had, I think, caviar.
Yeah, and he had foie gras, and he also had what he used to call litchis.
The litchis.
We're coming down onto O'Connell Street now. You see?
That's right.
You see that thing on the corner?
That's the father's old
That's
shop.
the Da's old grocery store there.
It is, yeah.
It's now a clothing store, but if you look very carefully at this rare old photograph, you'll see Leverett and Fry on the far right.
So this is where it was. Do you remember? The Da used to carve the ham around about here.
That's right.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, he was handling all this exotic foodstuffs.
Yeah.
And he was actually an expert in meat and the cooking of meats and hams and stuff like that. And my dear mother, God rest her soul, was the great destroyer of meat.
She was.
She did the incineration technique of cooking.
Auntie May used to say, Rose couldn't boil water.
That's right.
That's my mother, Rose. If he'd been any good, he would have left the shop to us.
I think it was more a case we certainly didn't want to be working for my dad.
No.
A hard taskmaster.
Yeah, because it was really hard work.
He'd never have cut corners. We'd never have been able to get away with the new techniques and the
because
new ideas.
you and I were intrinsically lazy people. That's
absolutely.
That's absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
At least we haven't any delusions about ourselves. Now the moment I've been waiting for, Elm Park,
is where Brian and I were born, where we spent our childhood. And for the first time since we left Limerick over a half a century ago, we're going home. 18 Ellen Park, Limerick, eh?
That's it.
Look at it. It's got a new name.
St. Jude's.
It was never called that.
No?
I'm going to tear that down. Number 18, this is. Can we go in?
Yes, why not?
Come on. You go first.
Okay. I'll knock.
Just in case they set the dog on him, you know. Hello.
Oh my God.
How do you do?
How do you do?
How are you? Nice to meet you.
Maybe come in.
You okay? Sure.
This is my brother Brian.
Nice to meet you.
Who have I got the
Tim Moran.
Tim?
Moran.
Thank you very much. If we may come in.
Thanks, Tim. Thank you very much indeed.
I remember that staircase. And look, the good room.
Ah, God.
It's a television room now.
Yeah.
Excellent.
It's wonderful.
This is grand. This is a huge big room.
Great room.
Isn't that great? Look what they've done with this, huh? My mother was never a great cook. But she would have been impressed with the kitchen, wouldn't she? Do you mind if we go upstairs?
Yeah.
Do you mind?
Walk away.
Okay.
That's amazing. Look at this.
The old narrow staircase. Yeah. Now, do you remember where the bathroom was? The bathroom was much more classier. In this very bathroom, Michael Wogan used to sing every evening as he shaved. He used to sing songs like Dead for Bread and Valentine's Goodbye to Faust.
That's right.
And he used to deafen everybody within a radius of 100 metres. But he always shaved the night before. Meticulous man. And I learned the floral dance because in this very bathroom, he used to sing it here.
That's right.
Michael Wogan.
Here is echoing.
Baritone extraordinary.
Each one making the most of his chance, all together in the floral dance.
The more cultured members of the audience might remember I recorded a version of the floral dance myself back in 1978. It got to number 21 in the charts, but many believe it went much higher than that.
And around the town, hurrah for the Cornish floral dance.
That's where it all began. Limerick marks the halfway point in my journey. My hometown has certainly changed. It's more prosperous, bigger, more confident. Although much of what I've seen has been changed by the passage of time. Many of the people I've met remind me how Irish I still am. To paraphrase the old expression, once an Irishman, always an Irishman.
That's right.
Next, I'm headed to a land I'm less familiar with. The North.
Now you see how idyllic this place is.
I have some old friends here to catch up with.
The people were innocent. And everybody just went, thank you.
There'll be lots of things, I'm sure, that'll surprise me about Northern Ireland. 3, 2, 1, go! By the time I get back to Dublin and catch up with the gossip,
people walked out in disgust.
I hope I'll be able to make sense of what has become of this great island in my absence.
There are more of us in England than there are in Ireland.
After all, you have to remember, I spent quite a lot of the last 40 years cooped up in a darkened room.
And Terry's journey continues at the same time next Sunday here on BBC One Northern Ireland. Now, if you're a tennis fan and fancy staying up late tonight, Andy Murray will be